Oh, there we go. It looks like we're 100% human and alive and on the air after a relatively short hiatus.
Well, we listened. It was good to have a break. Okay. Maybe even the people who watch us or listen to us, those two old guys have been around for a couple of weeks. Thank God.
It could very well be. But you know, the other side of that coin is what you, but it certainly has given me a pause for thought, thinking. You know, over the last however many episodes we've done, we've harped on the ineptitude of politicians, the ineptitude of systems that governments operate on. It's kind of like banging your head against the wall. And when you stop, you go, ooh, I don't have a headache anymore. And for me, I guess that's what this 3 weeks of traveling with family has said. You know, there are a lot of things wrong in the world, but there's a lot of things that are right. In pre-production, you were talking about your granddaughter that isn't even a teenager, who's starting to question the status quo. That's hope for the future.
Yeah, when a 12-year-old asks those questions because she looks around and says, "I don't believe everything I hear or see." Mm-hmm. Gee, Granddad, why don't you give me some advice on this? And I'm going, wow, you know.
Yeah.
So there is hope.
Well, that's true, and I guess we as the senior generation now, the baby boomers that are slowly or not so slowly passing on, we should be doing like our parents and grandparents did, is to try and make something better for the generations that are following us, so that maybe they don't feel as abandoned and confused as what your granddaughter is. I don't know what we could have done different. I don't know if there's anything that would have made a difference that had has led us to where we are today. What could we have done different, I guess? And that there'll be a lot of navel gazing, and you know, the Monday morning quarterback will always get this winning touchdown, and the talking heads will announce and have a running analysis, and you know, what is the watershed point that led us to where we are now? And that is a good question, I think.
Yeah, well, you know, we've been doing this almost 5 years, Bob, and it's a slow, corrosive thing that we've been watching happen, and if we look at literally the hundreds of episodes that are now in the internet vault here, the common thread is that we've lost trust in our institutions. We've lost trust in some of our own friends and neighbors who have been taken in by promises of hope and glory.
That's true.
If you will.
And I guess the other side of that coin is too is we've lost the ability to be civil.
Yes, one of the byproducts of the times is that if you can't have a civil conversation, folks like us simply don't have a conversation, so we walk away. And maybe that's part of the problem, is that we should have stopped walking away for all these years. When the craziness started, we should have said, stop this. This is crazy. But we didn't. We felt somehow that, you know, the craziness will run its course, and don't worry. And we don't want to upset anybody.
Yeah. Alternatively, is we didn't have the idea that we had lost that trust yet. So maybe this will work. Maybe it is a better way. And we had talked pre-production about how that really didn't turn out very well for the Department of Immigration in Canada. You know, you'd be pretty hard pressed to find a department called Immigration. It's there, Immigration, Refugee, Citizenship Canada, and one of
It's a
the
it's a
many,
word salad now, like
yeah.
everything else.
But what does the immigration sect of that department do? I don't know. Certainly nothing that I would recognize from our years of doing what we do. Um, it's been taken over by the cottage industry called the refugee lawyers. That
It's not a cottage industry; it's an industrial scale industry. I'm sorry.
it started, yeah, you're right. It started off as a cottage industry, and now is basically the the mass urban something or other. That's for sure.
It's immigration on an industrial scale. There's no question. It's not. There's no recruitment selection. It's just an open door. And the concept for the last couple of years, and that's not what we're going to talk about particularly today. But it's just as I said in pre-production, we have an invasive species that has come into our environment, and we're not natural predators to deal
Mhm.
with it. There are no whether it's rabbits in Australia or you said moose in Newfoundland,
Yeah,
or sheep somewhere else in New Zealand. There were no natural predators, and in nature, what happens when that happens, and we're as a collective society, we don't want to upset anybody who's overwhelming our system of fairness, our system of trust, our system
yeah.
of compassion, our system of fairness and civility. That's what happens, and so that trust thing we talk about, and the very people we trust to manage this, they're untrustworthy too, you
Well,
know.
excuse me. We mentioned that in pre-production. The CBC, which is a bought off and paid for arm of the federal government,
Yeah,
pays out
question.
bonuses to people for what? Uh, Canada Post that has been bailed out in the last year twice, and yet it still managed to put $30 million in bonus payout to the people.
but but this is it. Why have we become a society that thinks that kind of behavior is okay? Because that's unethical to give
Yeah,
someone money and privilege and a pat on the back for doing nothing. What are you doing here? Or having corrupt practices from the top down, and we ignore it. And say, well, it's because we've got this. We have to be nice. This is the Canadian thing that's, I think, caused us real problem. We don't want to say anything to upset anybody. Hey, listen, if someone's stealing money out of your house or your furniture or your car, you don't sit around and say, well, I don't want to upset him because, he's
that's true. I mean,
that's
I've only
so.
had I've only had the car for 6 months, so I was thinking about getting a new one anyway.
Yeah, I mean, we're being facetious here, but this old time thing about, we want to get along to get along. No, 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 no. We don't go along to get along. And that's I said, the invasive species theory. That's what we've got going on here. But if you're going to allow the crooks at the top to get away with it because you don't want to say anything, then why
Yeah,
aren't the crooks at the bottom going to be any different?
you
You
certainly
know?
don't upset the apple cart, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And I
So
guess
so
that's what boils down to a whole methodology you're right, we've lost trust. And we're just maybe haven't reached the point where we can say that out loud to friends and neighbors because we might upset them or we
well, and the Canadian thing is to say excuse me when you bump into someone. Well, no, okay, that's fine, except that the people bumping into us aren't saying excuse me.
yeah, yeah. And that's a big change that, and I don't want to get away from that. If I accidentally run into somebody or, run over somebody. And I don't mean in a car. I mean, just, I'm busy on my cell phone or something. And me being the size I am, the person that I hit is certainly going to be on the losing end of the proposition here. But we still have to have that. And maybe that's where we have to, stand up and start saying, you ran into me. I didn't run into you. So, when I'm going down on a walk now and I see somebody like this, I've made the conscious decision. I'm not moving. You're going to hit me. I've had it. If there's 4 people coming down the sidewalk and I'm walking with my wife and there's 2 of us, I'm tired of the guy that steps behind my wife to let the 4 people go by.
Yeah, I mean, that microcosm, that's exactly what I think is part of the reason that our approach to bigger questions of leadership, of questions of how the community functions is out of whack, because we used to know collectively as a community what were the norms, what were the traditions of and this, what was civility, and what were the boundaries that were basically prescribed, not in writing, but as human beings living together in a community. And all that stuff has been completely, pushed aside in the name of, gee, I don't want to upset, the new folks in town. No, this is not how this works.
Well, and that part and parcel goes with the lack of trust that has come up with, in particular, the immigration department in Canada. You had a system that was really a world envy program. You had selection criteria based on ability to speak the official languages, whether you had a job, whether you had relatives. There was just so much that you could, and that kind of got tossed out the window by well, I've mentioned it many times on our broadcast, the Ollie Ollie Oxenfree program that brings in self-selected immigrants. The government has lost total control over that, which I think has led to a starting of a mistrust.
Yep. Yeah. Again, my invasive species theory comes in here. There's no natural predators to ideas, cultures, legal views, societal norms that are not part of the community, which acts as the host to this invasive species.
Yeah, well, that's right.
Okay, so the zebra mussels in the Great Lakes are, what happened? Well, they have no natural predators.
Yeah.
And so, and I know that's some people are going to get upset. Oh, you're using a terrible analogy. These are human beings. Yeah, except that they're eating your lunch, and you're going to be hungry after a while.
Yeah.
There's another analogy for you. And the very people who are promoting all this and running it are the ones we've lost trust in, because they promised all kinds of stuff and have accomplished really very little in the terms of the delivery of the things that they said they were going to provide for us in their wisdom. Okay. And that's, the trust is lost when you're not asking me what I think is a good idea or not. Let's face it, this bunch that wants us to be chummy with the European Union and China, there's never been a question asked of me whether I want to be part of the European Union or do I want to be a province of China. But heaven forbid to someone say anything about trade with the U.S. Oh, and wait a minute. Why don't you ask me whether we should have any arrangements with the people right next door, much less someone 10,000 miles away? But that's not how this is working. So what they said in pre-production is we don't have any organic movements here that question what's going on. We have a top-down
well, that's right.
system which unfortunately Canadians are either, and I've said this on X a couple times, either too lazy or too stupid to question. Okay, and we've fallen into this thing about, oh well, those guys are really smart at the top. That's why they're at the top. Well,
Yeah,
the
they're at
reason
the
some of these
top.
people are at the top is because you never opened your mouth,
Yeah,
and you never questioned anything.
that's right. I mean, it's something as simple as the last $900 million to the Ukraine. When we have homelessness here, we've got hospital wait times here, we've got thousands of things that are wrong. I don't ever recall any discussion. Well, we don't have Parliament open right now anyway, but I don't recall even when Parliament was sitting that there was any discussion of sending any money to that particular country. Is there any, excuse me, is there any thought of our foreign aid overseas?
No, that was never. And readers need to, or listeners need to understand that we're not able to do much about it because our system has frankly not kept up with the times
No.
in terms of the machinery of managing, this pink part on the map in North America.
Mhm.
It's
And I
really,
guess that's going to take on. It's like putting on weight. You don't wake up fat one morning, putting on 20 extra pounds. That
no,
has come in very, very slowly.
yeah,
I think it's the same thing with the erosion of trust in government, in trust in politicians. It's been a slow process to get where we are, and it's going to be a slow process to get that trust back.
yeah, and
We don't
it's
have a
beyond
magic.
that. You're
We
right.
don't have the magic Ozempic drug that.
There is no Ozempic.
Yeah.
No, that's a very good point, Bob. There is no injection that we can pull out of a pharmaceutical kit, if you will, in politics and solve that problem. It doesn't, we've managed to evolve into what we are, which is sadly a very, no, I wouldn't say quite dysfunctional, but getting close to a dysfunctional operation. And as I said in pre-production, people still going around saying, "Oh, Canadian values." What Canadian values are you talking about? You go overseas and start talking Canadian values, and people look at you and go, "What are you on about?"
Mm.
Those are not, the Canadian values are not as specific as Canadian leadership might want you to believe, because the values of Nova Scotia and the values of Saskatchewan are very different in the communities there. Just because there's a flag that looks the same, that doesn't mean that the values are the same.
Mm.
The values of urban Canada are very different from the values of rural Canada. And the division between them is very much promoted by the very folks that keep telling you that, this is good for you, that, this diversity and this equity and this inclusion is why is the value of Canadians. And when you say, okay, well, prove it to me, they don't want to do that because what they want is to turn you into some sort of a challenger
Mm.
who is a Neanderthal, doesn't understand that the new world order that they've created here. And I'm going back to my invasive species theory again. Okay, well, you show me how this is worked out okay for everybody. Because a guy
Mm.
in Yorkton, Saskatchewan, doesn't know what you're talking about when he's talking to somebody from Downsview, Ontario, about something that's completely alien to him. All right. And you can put up all the maple leaf flags you want. That's not going to paper
Well,
it over.
and I guess that's what, going back to what you said before, if you ask somebody in Europe or South America or Asia, uh, what values does Canada, well, I don't know about values, but you do have that wonderful maple leaf flag. Um, you've got that national police force that dresses up in red. You have maple syrup. Yeah, that's it.
Well,
Those aren't values. Those are things that made Canada what it it was, and maybe that's what we're thinking, that people should be.
Resting on our laurels, as they say.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, and that today's world, where countries and regions are very much coalescing around certain traditions, cultures, ways of thinking. It's not a polyglot, everybody does whatever they want and it's all okay, which is what we're doing in Canada. And
Yeah.
by the way, some of this is spilling over into the US. Certainly when you look at we've been a quasi-socialist country since Confederation. Let's not kid ourselves. This is not a capitalist market-driven place the way our pals to the south are. But you see the movement towards this socialist slash communist concept that they've got in the urban centers. We've had that in our urban centers for a long time. you know, just scratch the surface of Toronto and you'll discover real quick that Toronto's no different than New York with Mondami. The same people with the same thinking are running this place there. Um, Vancouver has nothing in common with Toronto on how the community is managed. I think Surrey might have something in common with the suburb of Toronto, the city of Brampton, but that's a cultural thing, and
Mhm.
perhaps even linguistic and ethnic commonality. But that's got nothing to do with Canada
No,
collectively.
no. But anyway, yeah, I guess we started off with a trust issue. We're going to end on probably on a lack of trust issue that's got to be fixed.
Well, we
We've
need.
got our generation that we're looking out for ourselves, and not necessarily you and I, because I think we see a bit of a bigger picture. I want my kids and my grandkids to have a better life than I did, which is what I think my grandparent and my parents did for us.
Yep.
Um, going back to your granddaughter now, simply hearing that particular generation is not happy with the status quo and is starting to question things, certainly means that there's a section or a segment of the population that might actually start to look and say, okay, I trust this. So this is going to be part of my ethos, my tenet, my whatever it happens to be, and maybe that will lead to more people starting the same thing.
Yeah, I think to close that out on how I see my granddaughter's questioning, I think she's come to the conclusion in her mind that she's not going to be a victim anymore. She's not buying it into what we call the narrative, because as that generation, has so many different platforms of information that they've seen in their young lives, and they're already picking up on the fact that half of it's nonsense, because they're disappointed when some of the stuff that they've been fed via the internet is untrue. And so the question is, well, what is true? And so that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's hope for the future, and I think that she and perhaps others like her of that age and teenagers, in fact, are tired of the rhetoric coming out of the educational system that they're faced with every. They've overplayed their cards with the young generation. That's how I see it.
Yeah,
I don't think a black kid in going to school today is going to listen to a little nonsense from the left about how he's a victim, or how the white kids in the school are the oppressors. That's kind of getting boring, and that's why I think, and I just use that as an example on race, but you can use it on any other topic. I think that these kids have figured out that DEI is bogus because they have figured out what the adults have fed them, that, well, everybody gets opportunity and should have opportunity and should have the chance to make themselves better and more successful. It doesn't mean they're going to. These kids have figured out that the results are not always going to be the same. You might have equal access, but you're not going to have equal results, and they know this. When a teenager figures this out, then they're going to start going, listen, you fed me a lot of nonsense here. Okay.
That's right. And the famous words of Colonel Potter on MASH, this is a load of hooey.
Yeah. So I think there is hope, because, like I said, when they figure it out, and maybe that's where the bubbling up or the organic changes will become. The top-down stuff isn't working as well as the proponents would like it to work, and I think we're seeing that. Used to be it would take 5-10 years for something to metastasize, in politics. I think you can probably reduce that now to 3 to 5 years very quickly. And the next 6 months in around us is going to be very interesting. Might not be fun, might be very painful, in fact. But there is I think hope that people coming to their senses is if a little bit of trust can be rejigged somehow. It's going to have to be something done where people say, you know what, I believe what you're telling me. We have to do this X, Y, or Z. Okay, the stuff that we've been told so far over the last decade or so, I think, has run its course, and we may be out to lunch. I mean, but I get this uncomfortable feeling, I guess is the best way to describe it, that there's something going to happen here, which, human nature being what it is, it always shows up in the end, that you can't keep pushing a particular narrative without having results that the folks will accept, if you will. The mosaic theory here, everybody's going to be okay being totally different, that's not going to work. That's a zebra muscle problem.
Well, even our former prime minister, often referred to by internet personality as the idiot king, he's actually come out now and started talking. And why people, I don't know why people are even asking to have him on their shows, I don't know. But even he's saying, this mass immigration, maybe it wasn't a good thing. So
yeah, he's trying to be a mea culpa. I'm sorry.
I'm sure. Yeah.
The idiot king is responsible for the discussion we're having today to a large degree in this country. That's not to say that there aren't other idiots of the same realm in other countries as well. But I mean, for us, all roads lead back to the 2015 election. I'm sorry, that's from a historical perspective, you can pretty well start from there and move to today and say, why are we where we are today? So in the meantime, of course, we didn't pay attention to what happened in other parts of the world, that particularly next door, which could have been handled a whole lot differently. But no, because we're smarter than the average bear. Okay, fine.
Sure we are. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, if we were, we wouldn't be having this discussion today about trust. Because if I trusted the people to do implicitly what's good for me, my family, my community, my province, my country, we'd be much further ahead. Right now, I don't trust them to wash my car.
No. Well, I was once told by a co-worker, you have some people that could organize a one route one house paper route, but I wouldn't even trust that to this band of thieves.
You gotta watch it. All right, listen. If you like what we talk about, don't forget to subscribe. This
Buy
is
us a
this
coffee.
this is the sales pitch, right?
Yeah.
Buy us a coffee. See us on Rumble. Hear us on Apple iTunes. Hear us on Spotify. Um, and we'll be back possibly next week, Lord willing.
Yeah.
And have a good summer, guys.
Yeah. Don't don't sweat the small stuff.
Exactly. Exactly. We'll have more intellectual stuff next week. We ramble.
Fingers
It's the
crossed.
summer. We get to ramble in the summer.
Yeah. Well, we usually ramble anyway, but
That's true too. Yeah. Gotta go.
talk to you soon.